Welcome to the Smoke Break. I am your host, your old pal Zane, here with Zoe Schwartz.
I'm just over here being cool.
Jasmine Nothing.
Also cool.
And Keith Rosson.
Hi.
Keith Rosson is a author and a avid cassette collector. Yes, I remembered it. He's the author of the book Fever House, which he has actually given us all signed copies of. So that's how you know he's the fucking homie.
So cooler than other
One
guests.
day.
That's
Have
how you
any
know
other
he's
guests
got-
brought presents?
He's got a lot of extra copies laying around.
So one day we can sell it for a
true.
ton of money when you're super famous,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Perfect. Yep.
Exactly.
No, just kidding.
Sell your own stuff on eBay as not you.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I'm super excited to talk to you. So you're a horror author, correct?
Yeah, I started out writing like a lot of my first 4 books came out like on an indie press, and they kind of fall under like literary fiction and also like magical realism and stuff.
Okay,
So
yeah.
Fever House is the first one that I went like full horror with.
Yeah, that's really well, and that's really cool because it brings us into our next topic, which is I'm gonna drop this off right here. Fear. Perfect. So, fear, I feel like is a topic that you have to write around often. What kind of drew you to that?
You know, I think I was in such an interesting spot because I had fired my literary agent because we had just kind of been conflicted about where my career should be going.
Sure.
And so, and I wrote a straight like crime novel, like just
Okay,
kind
like
of a
noir.
genre novel. Yeah. And it
I've been
was
waiting
like,
to do that voice.
that was good. That was good. I wish
this
it
old
was
timey
that.
voice thing recently.
Yeah.
It's a new thing.
Yeah. And it just kind of fell flat. And so I wrote Fever House kind of at the beginning of the pandemic.
Okay.
And my partner and I had just adopted 2 kids.
Oh,
and
cool.
so they were here. They were with us for like 2 weeks, and then the state shut everything down. You know? And so they were like,
It's impeccable
who-
timing.
Yeah. Who the hell are you? And why are we here? And why
Yeah.
can't we leave?
Sure, they weren't
And-
afraid at all.
No, right. Totally.
How
And
old were
then-
they? Sorry, I'm just
They're
curious.
2 and 3.
Wow.
And then,
Yeah.
but they had just, it was like a month before their birthdays. So 3 and 4, like
Wow.
toddlers.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
huge.
And traumatized and had been through a lot. And then we're just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And that summer, I believe, was the George Floyd killing of George Floyd, and all the protests that sparked that. And so kind of all of that fear and anxiousness and claustrophobia and anger just kind of smushed together into that book.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's really cool that you were able to put that into something, 'cause
It was such a salve. It was like writing the book was like my escape from all this
Catharsis.
other,
Yeah.
raising, with the kids. It was really hard.
Yeah.
It's impressive that you were able to produce something like
I
that
know, right?
environment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even producing something like fear in
Yeah.
an environment where there's already
Yeah.
that, like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a climate,
It was very much a release for that anxiety and anxiousness.
Yeah.
And, So.
Jasmine, you were telling me a little bit earlier about some fear that you were working through that I thought was kind of interesting. You want to share?
Sure. Yeah, I was talking about for the ghost show that I did not last year, but the year before, so the second annual ghost show. The story I wrote was about basically like I was having like my brain was rotten and bad and was telling me mean things, and I was like feeling super anxious, and to distract myself, I was just like picturing really scary shit in my house that was like so scary and that it distracted me enough that I couldn't actually be upset about the thing that I was upset about before.
Genius.
And
Genius.
really specifically, the back door of my house, like it's out to like the little vestibule area where we keep the dog food and where all the banana slugs come in to steal the pieces that fell down. There's a cat door in that. We don't have a cat. It's from the old tenants.
Never processed that.
Thank you. But I would just stand there and I would just picture this like arm coming through it, but not just like an arm, like a regular, like a really too long arm, like many joints, like, and it just
so good.
keeps coming towards you, and it's like twitchy and it has nails and the skin is bad, and like kind of like the skin was kind of like slippy slidey, like it wasn't connected quite right.
You didn't say that earlier. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then I would just like stand there in the hallway and picture that coming for me, or sometimes I would like turn around so it was behind me and just be like, it's gonna get me, it's gonna touch my ankle like any second now. But it would like, get my heart rate up so fast and like hard that I would just like, how could I possibly be upset about the dumb thing that somebody said at lunchtime at work? Like, who cares about that anymore? Because this thing is gonna like murder me like any second.
Thing has 25 elbows.
Ooh,
And
that's too
it
many
works.
elbows.
It works.
Was it like intentional, or was it just happening and you were like, oh, this is working?
Well, Yes.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like the first time when I was standing in the hallway and I was like, what would like, that's creepy. I feel like I want to like seal it or something. And then I was like, what would come through there? And the first thought I had was like that. And then I was like, and then I was like, oh, what was I was previously upset about something. And then I was trying to remember what I was upset about. And then I was like, oh,
Can't even remember.
what if I did that purposefully?
Yeah.
And so then I just started making up all sorts of things in the house. So like, you know, the feeling when you like dangle your like legs over the edge of the bed and
Oh,
something
I
might
do.
be under the bed,
Yes.
but like you won't, and you want to pull your feet up because no one's looked under there for so long to make sure there's not actually a monster.
Just gonna say.
When was the last time you checked?
I don't know, but I'm thinking about we ate mushrooms a while ago, and I decided I made up a business where I was going to check under people's beds for monsters,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
and it was really funny. And it's funny because I was at their house.
Yeah.
It's true. So this is really connected. I was picking up on that energy when I was there.
It's like, yes, under the bed,
Also,
scary.
that little hole in the ceiling feels like something could come out of there too.
Absolutely. I'll think of that next time.
I love your brain though. That's so cool that you were like, "This is terrifying. How could it make
I'm
me
gonna
feel
do it
better?"
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that makes sense, kind of in the same same vein of like you writing a horror book while we were all horrified.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah.
And the new kids too is like just a whole wild
Yeah.
layer on top of what was
Yeah.
happening to everybody
Yeah.
collectively.
I feel like fear is such like a hard thing to navigate, you know, because it's like I think at first like I think that I'm alone in fear. And then when I find out that like people also share the same fears, or, you know, like even the arm thing, you know, like that wasn't something I realized I was scared of until you mentioned it. You know?
Great.
So it's like I feel like
it's added one more thing for you to be
yeah,
afraid of.
absolutely. Now I have something to imagine.
Yeah.
Neat.
But I think like kind of getting us to like collect in that fear. Like that's almost what like COVID did, is where
Yeah.
it was just like we all had a shared trauma. Everyone was like, what's a trauma? What's a trauma? And then we all had a shared one.
Yeah.
Oh, this.
And I think like understanding, you know, that human feeling of being afraid, of like your heart sinking, of feeling powerless, like those are all very real feelings that we all experience together.
Yeah.
So no, I think that's the fear is just it's such an interesting emotion, especially because it's like it can be paralyzing, it can be motivating. What's been your experience? Do you feel like fear is paralyzing or motivating for you?
Oh, I think it's like like fill in the blanks, you know what I mean? Because I have so many different kinds, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I recently in the past couple of months started seeing a therapist again. And one of the most freeing things, well, there's a couple, and one is like telling another person this fear, this anxiety like robs so much of its like singular power of like
Secrets make us sick.
yeah, like nobody has ever felt this way before, and it's like it's actually pretty pedestrian, dude. Like a lot of people feel this way.
Yeah.
Like your fears aren't that creative.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I like
Or
that.
Mine might be a
That individual, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty common, you know, a common concern or fear or whatever. But also I think like with the writing stuff, it's like it's a tremendous way to kind of like process that stuff. And so
Yeah.
like a lot of the police overstep that I saw in 2020 and is present in the book. You know what I mean? And like in the next one that's coming out in September, there's a lot of like parental fear that I have of like just failing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that kind of like comes up. So it's a great way to kind of like exhume those terrors. And
Well, and I think like navigating them through fiction feels like a little bit safer, you know, because
Yeah.
it's just like I can kind of like work my way through this without it, you know, like with like and maybe even see the repercussions, you know, through your story.
yeah, and it's a
creates
weird,
injustice.
Yeah.
it's like an organic way kind of solving problems and answering
Yeah.
things that I
Yeah.
didn't know about that I was really, you know what I mean? Like it's a weirdly organic, like almost subconscious way to address things.
Yeah.
It makes me think about how I've heard that like there's a theory about like, you know, like stereotypically white women are really into like murder mystery stuff.
Right.
And I've heard that it's like maybe there's some connection between like the fear that, you know, women feel in general about being women, and like how maybe there's like some weird desire to like understand how bad things happen or something. Have you ever heard this before? Am I getting this right? I feel like there's something there, right? Like I've heard
Yep.
this theory or whatever, which kind of makes sense. So it kind of the same thing of like trying to make sense of things that are scary as a way to feel like some sense of control or
Yeah.
Yeah.
safety
That
or
makes
something.
sense. That makes a lot of sense. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I think that understanding is something that like has helped me reduce fear, because it's like I can't be as afraid of something that I understand that deeply,
Yeah, like sap some of the power.
Yeah, like it's not as surprising, it's not as I think you can kind of like remove some of that, because it's like I feel like most of my fears are like the unknown, the like, is this situation dangerous? I don't know. If I know the situation's dangerous, I can go into it knowing that it's dangerous, but the fact that I don't know, I think is that, what's under the bed. It could be anything,
Right.
It's not something bad is under the bed. I can deal with that.
Yeah. Just that acknowledgement. You know what I mean? Yeah. That is like, I was as a kid raised to like constantly be in the other room as far as like, if there was anything, the adults in my life were not like reliable as far as like being safe and all that stuff. So it was like constantly in the other room just to make sure. And so now it's like there's such a so much power in just that like naming of it,
Yeah.
Well, and I like what you said earlier about like naming fears and finding out that it is more universal.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
because
when it can just isolate you so much.
Who's afraid of swimming? Cool, isolated. Never mind. Never again. I'm never sharing.
I mean, the ocean. Yes,
I was just gonna say, yeah.
It's so vast, and like as a legally blind dude, I'm like I'm afraid of like I totally am. Yes, like the ocean of like being in. Just being like, oh, I wouldn't see a shark until it was like literally, like biting me.
Having
in
a
the
snack.
ass.
Yeah, but I think but even that it tracks to like the I don't know where it is. I think with when I was swimming, like I did eventually learn how to swim because I was so afraid of it. But I think the fear of that like I can't touch the bottom.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't touch the bottom. I don't know where it is. I don't know how far down it is.
Totally.
I just know that I can't touch it. I think that you can build it up in your head.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you feel like you build up in your head, Jasmine?
I've never done that.
Never. Okay. Well, awesome. Zoe, what about
I've never once built up anything in my head.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
There's nothing. You're really gonna shrug us?
No, that's a complete lie. I build up everything in my head.
Okay, give us an example.
Yeah, give us an example.
I mean, I was terrified of driving for a really long time. I didn't get my
That's
license
fair.
until I was like probably close to 30, maybe. And I only did it then because I had to for work.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like I should be more scared of driving when you really think about how scary it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird that we're not all. And then when I meet someone who doesn't drive, I'm like, I totally get it. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
a scary ass thing that we do every day.
Yeah. And then I was in my first very not a big deal, totally fine afterwards, like accident, like a year ago. And so now I just like, we just drove past it the other day and it was like every time I drive past this spot, like, which we do twice a day, almost every day, because I have to do it for the work commute. Like every time I'm like, remember that one time
Yeah.
when that was bad? Because trauma lives in your body.
Oh,
Mhm.
yep. That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how, like, on the same idea, just like fear as like a more broader concept, less specific to me. But like, I was thinking about, did you all watch that documentary about that guy who, free
Willie.
no, the one where they climb without ropes. What's
Oh,
Free
right.
climb?
Yeah, but he did the it's called like El Capitan or something
Yeah.
like that. And one of the I'm really bad at words today.
He died, right?
I didn't know that, but that makes sense because they mostly die. And I watched the documentary, and it was like he was like, they were the people recording, taping. I can't talk today. The people that were like, videoing. What is it called?
Yep, videoing.
They were like shook the whole time. Like they were like, we are just waiting for him to die in front of us because they were all on ropes.
Yeah.
And it was like this really interesting. Has anyone watched this documentary that I'm talking about? You should watch it. It's kind of interesting, really interesting. But yeah, they're basically just like really trying, like it was such a juxtaposition between the way that everybody else felt about it because it's fucking terrifying. And this guy's just like,
Just got to
this
get
is
up
what
there.
I do. And and he's probably a little different emotionally than like the average person, whatever that means. You know what I mean?
It's a little bit level of detachment.
Yeah, but it was wild. Like just the like trying to get in the head of a person who does that. I mean, there's other people we know that do things like that, right? Like people that love skydiving or whatever. But
Public speaking.
But that one specifically is like the chance of you dying is like higher than not, and so it's a
Way more dangerous than public speaking.
Yeah, and that was like how he felt alive. Like that was how he felt like life was worth living. And I was just like, wow, that is a wild relationship to fear for something like that. Like I'm just going to try to die all day long to feel alive.
Yeah, but I mean,
flirting with risk.
Yeah.
I feel like having that much fear, and even like with things that we've experienced in the past, is like once you've experienced something that was like so scary, you can kind of compare everything after to, it's like, well, this isn't as scary as that. So
Well, even like stand-up comedy, like it's like on a much smaller scale because you're not going to die. But, your body sometimes feels like you're going to die when you're scared, even though you're not actually going to die. But yeah, it's interesting how I think there's a lot of gratification that we get from getting over something that scares us. And I think that's like a really interesting kind of universal aspect of being a human, even when we are like an anxious person naturally, So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, cool. We're going to take a real quick break and we'll be right back with the smoke break. And welcome back to the smoke break. I was so excited to have Keith that I forgot to do the disclaimer. I'm your host, your old pal Zane, here with Zoe Schwartz.
I'm Zoe.
Jasmine Nothing.
I also forgot the disclaimer.
And Keith Rosson.
I did too.
I'm the one who remembered, though. I'm the one, and I have a bad memory. So
good job,
well,
Zoe.
that's why Zoe's going to present it this time.
You want to do it?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, quick disclaimer. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. We work in the field of mental health, but don't claim to be professionals in this space. Our intention is to have conversations about lived experience. As a result, we may not always agree with everything that our guests say, but we do intend to hold space for open conversations and learning from one another.
Thank you so much,
Nicely
Zoe.
done.
Well
Thank
done.
you so much, Keith, for reminding Zoe that we needed to do that. But yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you because you are a writer. We all write in this circle to some extent. How do you generate ideas?
Yeah, that is such a good question. I know people who just have like more ideas than time, And
that sounds cool.
I am not a writer like that. Like it is really hard for me I work in this space of like horror and crime.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Those being closely related?
I see, yeah, right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I kind of take like a trope and twist it around until it's like, so Fever House is essentially like when you distill it down, it's a zombie novel.
Okay.
I've written a ghost novel and what's another one? I wrote one about unicorns, believe it or not.
Okay.
And so I just kind of
Like literal unicorns, but
like the
which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah, right. Actual unicorns.
Yeah.
The
metaphorical?
Yeah.
You know what I meant. Like not the ones that
not
have
the
sex
wink
with
wink
couples.
nudge nudge
Yeah.
type, but yeah.
Oh my God. I also wrote a book.
So I kind of work in this pretty like specific wheelhouse.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
So it sounds very dorky to say, but I keep a Word doc. And that's it. It's just it's years old. It's got, everything from like entire sections of stories that I cut out to a single line, and like when I get stuck, I just come back to that. And as a writer, I would strongly suggest to everybody, even if you get super sick of a piece, do not just torch it and throw it away. Hang on to it because I have like incorporated entire, I've brought major projects back to life.
I love that. I love that you said that.
Yeah. Nothing dorky about the word doc. Also, I just like to say that.
Yeah. Zoe has one. That's why she wanted to.
No, I
Quick
wish I
disclaimer:
had one.
Word docs aren't dorky.
Yeah,
so.
right.
I mean, we basically have the same thing. Ours are just like in notes on our phones and stuff.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, I like what you said about the not torching anything. So when I was writing, I first started off writing like hip hop lyrics and stuff like that. I would write them. They would usually be about a girl, and then I'd be like, "These are stupid," and I don't care about her anymore. And I would just torch it, and I would torch that with like a sweatshirt because like I usually like wear like a sweatshirt for a season, and then like
you
literally torch it.
literally torched
Yeah, I
it.
was
Would
like-
like put it in a fire pit in my friend's backyard and just light it all up, and it felt like cathartic in a way to kind of like leave. Cleansing to leave those parts of me behind. But at the same time, my mom would always say, don't fucking don't torch your shit. Don't torch, literally don't torch it. And so what I started doing is like taking like, okay, well, like this song isn't good, but these 4 lines are like great.
Yep. And that has worked for me before. Yeah.
And being able to just like piece it together, because it's like, it may not be perfect for this, but that doesn't mean it's not relevant to this.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. Jasmine, your writing process, tell us about it.
It is bad. I only have motivation to do it when there's a deadline involved, and I basically am incapable of coming up with anything until there's like somewhere between like 48 to 24 hours before I have to be able to do it on stage.
I get it.
It sucks. I do not recommend it. This is not a good idea.
Yeah.
But it is what happens.
It's not a choice necessarily. It's just your process.
It doesn't
though, right?
seem to be.
No, I get it.
This past show that I just did, I got the idea for what I was going to do like weeks in advance. And I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. I didn't write it, but I got the idea. And it was going to involve a second person that I was collaborating with. And then like 4 days before, I was like, I had part of my thing prepped and I was going to meet up with this person so we could do it and they could like practice their part. Couldn't do it. They were no longer able to show up and do it. They were just like, let's practice on the day of. And I was like, that will not work for me.
No.
And technically, Zane, you did predict it. It was like, what if the person doesn't show? And I was like, okay.
Try not to be that person.
But that's exactly what happened. And for good reason, it's fine in case. But it did mean that I had to like throw away the idea that I had and the one time that I had tried to do in advance and start completely over. But there was like something you had said when we were hanging out, like about 10 Commandments, like,
yeah.
and so I
unless.
yeah, like if you have the 10 Commandments, just like add the word unless at the end of it, and then add some more stuff because it seems like there's some missing words in some of those. So I like took that and a little chunk of like what I had written before, and then wrote my own 10 Commandments and smushed them all together and pulled it off. But there's no process. It's not good, and it normally involves like some panic and some crying and some tequila.
I've heard that that's like for me to make it about myself because I have ADHD. We need the adrenaline or the whatever boost, the dopamine to get the thing done.
Yeah.
And so I know it's not a great process in the sense of feeling terrible, but I also think like everything you've done is awesome. So
well, thank you.
Yeah,
even though it doesn't feel good, it's working.
It's worked out for you pretty well.
Yeah.
I've seen some of your stuff and it's very good.
Yeah.
So.
For somebody who didn't go to school, you sure do like replicate the like study before the night before the test and fucking pull it off.
Yeah.
That's how I made it through college both times.
Yep. Yep. Let's see. Writer's block for me. I like to look for like through different sorts of media. I think that there's things like comic books that like I find inspiring. I think that there's jokes that like I find inspiring, but like I think of like that joke in the sense of like if that joke were to be a bigger song, you know? So it's like I like to cross like almost genres and mediums where I'm just like, okay, this was is a book, but like what if it was condensed down to like a line, you know? What if this line was made longer into an entire thing? So I definitely like taking inspiration from just like all different forms, and I like to think you can be inspired by just about anything. You know, you can learn a lesson from just about anything. You can be inspired by anything. So like whenever I'm coming across like a new piece of art, I'm like, what can I pull from this? What can I use? Is it the way that the characters are interacting? Is it the dialogue? Like what is inspiring about this? But I think that when it comes to like just feeling stuck, it's just putting something on the paper.
Yeah, and it's funny that given our next topic of discussion, but I had just realized there's a very well-respected horror author named Stephen Graham Jones, and he has I remember him being asked about writer's block at one point. He's like, the question was, what do you do to kind of avoid it? And his very simple answer was, that's when I lower my expectations for myself.
Yo,
And it's
what?
like, oh, that makes...
So it's like you're being too hard on yourself,
yeah,
maybe?
and just
That
like
makes sense.
go do something easier than what you're trying. You know?
Well, I mean, I think that the block comes from thinking that like what I'm writing isn't good enough.
Yeah.
It's like the ego saying that this should be
Totally.
better. So you're like, I'm stuck because I can't write anything. It's like, no, you didn't write nothing. You didn't write what you wanted to yet.
Right. Yeah.
It's
I
not
like
the
that.
end version.
Yeah. But the effort unlocks, I'm firmly believe that if you write, 500 words, there's a kernel there that is workable. You know what I mean? And that will like open a door and you just, it's just sitting down and doing it.
What are your thoughts on like understanding, and this is just almost me personally, but like I have this understanding that I have to write a certain amount of bad songs before I get to a good song. So like, do you just like write for the sake of being like, I just gotta get this bad story out of the way so I can, or is everything supposed to be?
No, I've totally done that. I've been like, oh, this is, like equating it with like baseball or something. It's like, oh yeah, this is like a second base story. It's not like knocking it out of the park sort of thing, but like it's here and I need to get it out. Like absolutely.
Okay.
And it can be, a lot of times I've done those and they've worked into like, much better stories,
and I think it's because there's less pressure on it.
Yeah.
It's similar to that dumb thing that I talk about with the dog all the time of like my dog, he hates lots of things, but most of the other dogs. And once he like gets barking, like Zane will walk into the house and I feel like he's like manufactured a number of barks inside. And it doesn't matter that he now understands that it is Zane and it is fine. And Zane lives there and it's whatever, because like the barks still have to come out. So he has to like finish barking and get it out of his system.
Yes.
Oh, me and Fig might have this in common.
I think all of us have this in common.
But you have to get the bad story out or the bad song or whatever. Just like
the
it's
barks.
there, move it along.
I knew I had a
and
vibe with
make
Fig.
space.
I don't think he's ever barked at me, and I think it's because we're
You have the same problems.
no, really. Remember because when I asked you recently, I was like, "Is he super chill with other dogs?" And you were like, "Oh,
No,
absolutely
he
not." And I
will
was like,
murder
"What?"
them.
I was like, "This guy right here,"
Yeah.
because
People
I
sweet.
mean, I've only been around him like a handful of, like even less than a handful, probably, but sweet little baby, from what I can tell.
Because you're a
Sweet
person.
little angel
Wouldn't bark
baby.
at a soul. My God.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's like that idea of just trying to push through the tough stuff. Like do you ever feel like that with like jokes where you're just like, this isn't going to be the best joke, but I just need to get something new, something out.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And and something that I've been getting better about this time, when I think this kind of goes along with the idea of like lowering your expectations, is like what I kind of forget that like the reason I do comedy is because I'm a naturally funny person. So if I'm trying to write and it doesn't feel funny, it's like, oh, why don't you go on stage with the idea and just talk shit about it and then see what comes from that and then listen to your recording and write that down. So I think that's a big one is lowering the expectation and just trusting that like you have a cool brain that'll make something cool out of it.
Yeah.
Another one that I think is really good is like just going and watching other creative people or read, like for us it's comedy, right? But for you it's probably reading other stuff or whatever. I mean, I'm sure reading for us would work too, but I have ADHD and it's easier for me to not
More audiobooks.
But I think like going and being around other people, listening to comedy or watching comedy specials, but also the thing you said too about going back. Like I did a set last night and I had a friend come that like hadn't seen me do comedy in like probably 3 or 4 years, and I was like, was that all new for you? And he was like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of it felt familiar. And I was like, you know what? It's probably because a lot of those jokes are like evolved jokes that started and that have a kernel of something that I wrote a long time ago that didn't work.
Yeah.
And then I found a home for it like years later.
Yeah.
And so both of those ones make sense to me. Yeah. I think like both. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I really appreciate like the kernel part of that because it kind of reminds me of what you're saying of just like there's something in all of it. What's been like a breakthrough you feel like you've had with like writer's block?
You know, honestly, I get asked like, what's a piece of writerly advice you would give?
Of course.
I think the biggest one that the best break I ever gave myself was permission to write a shitty first draft and to just finish it. Because by the time that I finish a shitty first draft, I'm so more informed about my characters that's going to show me how they would actually, you know, when I go back to the second draft, I know how they're going to act a lot more because I know I have a better idea of them as people.
Sure.
And so it's like I know a lot of writers who really are like, if I get the first 10 pages down, then I can move on. And it's and then nothing gets finished, you know?
Yeah.
And so for me, just giving myself permission to fart cry my way through the first draft, you know what I mean?
Fart cry.
Do I ever?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever heard that.
I love it. I
A
love it.
wordsmith. Thank you so much.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Really struck a chord with me. Farting and crying are two of my. No, I'm just kidding.
I definitely I like what you said about the finishing the finishing part piece of it too, because like I got into music production and there's this thing called the 8-bar loop. It's like a jail cell or whatever, but where it's just you get trapped in making 8-bar loops where it's like this could be a whole song, but it's not because you just made this much. And they start saying they're like, hey, like the way to get out of this is by finishing songs, because the problem is I keep starting 100 songs, but I'm not working on the muscle that finishes things.
Yeah.
So
same thing, man.
Yep.
100%.
I think that's like just even that idea of. I'm sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. Help me.
Finishing songs.
Yes, finishing songs. Yes, absolutely. Like, yeah, the idea of like finishing a song, it's like it doesn't have to be a perfect song by the end of it.
Yep.
You know, it just has to be a completed song. And especially like the thing that you were saying about like going back and being more informed. Because I like that because I feel like with a character, you're not really sure who they are just yet. And after you've put them through like a certain amount of scenarios, like by here, you're like, oh, I know that they would have reacted to this actually differently.
Absolutely. That's totally it. Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, hey, I appreciate you sharing some tips on writer's block.
There you go.
Yeah, appreciate you. Cool. We're going to take a real quick break and we will be right back with the smoke break. And welcome back to the smoke break. I'm your host, your old pal Zane, here with Zoe Schwartz. Jasmine, nothing.
You're supposed to talk.
I know.
Loud, Zoe.
I'm having a hard time.
I'm also here. Yep.
And Keith Rosson.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my goodness. We're gonna talk about expectations in a second. I don't know how that
You're
would tie
expected
in.
to talk out loud.
I don't know this. I've been doing this for like 3 years.
Just waved. But before we do that, we're going to do our segment called You Probably Are, where we read a story from Am I an Asshole? And we decide. So Jasmine, go ahead.
So this is a 23-year-old female. I've recently started seeing this guy who's 26. He's super pretty, but he's kind of emotionally unavailable, and he's alluded to an unstable and unhealthy childhood. For context, I also work with socializing abused and neglected dogs at a local shelter, and I think of how much time I spend with the dogs is impacting the way I interact with people.
Fair.
When we were on a date, I started subconsciously making mental notes about him, like the notes I'd make about a dog. For example, I noticed when we went out to dinner, I noticed that he ate really quickly and was very anti-sharing, like resource guarding. But when I offered to pay and suggested dessert, it seemed to make him really happy and a little calmer. Food motivated.
Oh my God.
He's really particular about his car. Territorial. Crate aggression. He likes when I pick where we go and what we do. Eager to please. So I've started using the same tactics I would use on a dog with similar problems.
Oh my God.
Recently, a friend pointed out that it's weird that I keep peanut M&Ms on me with the purpose of offering the guy one when I see him and offering them again whenever I can tell he feels vulnerable.
Oh my God.
She said that I'm being an asshole because he's a person and not a dog, so I shouldn't be training him like one. I don't think that's fair. I'm not trying to control him or anything. I just want him to feel comfortable with me the same way I need the animals I'm helping to feel comfortable with me too. Humans and animals aren't that different. We all just want to feel safe and cared for. The guy hasn't noticed yet as far as I can tell. The problem is my technique is yielding really positive results.
Oh, that's hard.
So am I the asshole?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, I don't know. You're the friend with peanut M&Ms at least.
Oh man, I want to say that she's creative, but it might be a little bit of a weird thing to do.
But weird and being an
Yeah, I was
asshole
gonna
aren't
say-
the same.
Yeah.
It's a Venn diagram, but
Yeah, you could say that they would cross.
It's like, but is she thinking of her boyfriend as a dog? Because that might be an asshole thing to do.
Saying that a human is food motivated is kind of savage.
Yeah, right.
It's like I think we all are.
I don't know if she's an asshole, but
Right.
Sounds like she's a good trainer.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, I guess it would be like, run that up the flagpole if you told the guy.
Yes.
How would he feel about, like, hey, I used a lot of these little tricks that I learned from work on you.
I feel like that's how you can tell if you're an asshole, is if you can tell the story to the person that you think you're being an asshole to, and they decide.
I feel like I would be pretty bummed if, you know what I mean?
Yes,
Like,
yes, I do know what you mean. Yes.
be like, so I get a peanut butter M&M or whatever every time.
I'd be like,
no wonder I salivate when I see my partner.
Yeah,
That's
right.
weird.
Totally.
The therapist in me wants to be like, well, what happened to her? And like, why is this how she needs to get her needs met? Also, people who work with animals often, because it's easier for them to relate to animals than it is people, and there's maybe trauma in there. So that's my therapist brain wants to give her excuses for maybe doing a little weird thing.
Super funny therapist brain. So the answer is you probably are.
Kind of an asshole. I don't think she's meaning to be an asshole, but I think what
you can inadvertently be an asshole.
I think if the person who she's doing it to knew that would make them feel like shit, which kind of
or you'd feel like a good boy, you know? Who knows? So expectations.
Yeah, there you go.
More than just M&Ms.
He's expecting an M&M.
Yeah. Hey, I am at the end of this
Also,
episode.
how is he not picked up on that? It's weird to give someone an M&M randomly, right?
Yeah.
Like
every time.
Yeah.
if someone did that to me, I'd be like, thumbs up.
I would be like, what's your other job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity.
No reason.
So Pavlov. It's see, good transition. Expectations. I feel like expectations can be healthy. I feel like they can be unhealthy. I feel like they can be good predictors of the future. I feel like that goal setting can be extremely helpful.
They can be terribly disappointing.
They can be terribly disappointing. I think that oftentimes I've only ever been disappointed when I had an expectation.
Yeah.
You kind of shoot yourself in the foot by being like, I really hope this goes blank, because if it goes anything other than that, then the experience wasn't a success. It was just not what you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
You know. So, what's everyone's experience with expectations and trying to like navigate how tricky they are?
I feel like they usually get me in trouble. Yeah, I think usually it's one then because it can easily make you feel like you were saying, like let down by someone or something. And then I think it also takes you away from being present sometimes because it prevents you from seeing the value or the silver lining in the other things that maybe happened instead of the thing you were expecting.
Yeah, definitely.
I also feel like constant disappointment and with expectations makes me like lower the bar really low. Which like sometimes that's useful because like it's hard to be disappointed, but sometimes you like lower it too much.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then people, maybe letting people get away with something they shouldn't because you're like, well, I don't expect anything more out of you anyway, so whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So lowering them to a certain extent, but not so low that like you're allowing people in that you wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What about you, Keith?
Yeah, there's a interesting thing with Fever House in particular. Like, there was a lot of buzz around it when it first came out, you know, and I had a lot of courtship from like television and film people and all this stuff. And so there was at one point like one of the producers from the Jumanji movies was like, yeah, I love your stuff, man, and I just really want to jump on the Keith Rosson train, And it was like, you don't know who the fuck I am. Like, give me a break. But so I was
building up expectations in you though.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, well, I am made. Like this is made. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the continuous kind of like having to kind of dismantle that stuff as the years go on, And so like I'm still in a very fortunate spot as far as I'm able to make this a career and all that.
Yeah.
But like the Jumanji guys have not called me in some time. You know what I mean? And so just like living in that space of like, once a book is out, it's very hard because like in reviews and stuff, like I've been like hurt by reviews or things like that because I felt like misrepresented and stuff.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sense.
But it's a continual letting go of something because once the book is out in the world, it's not really yours anymore in the sense that people like a song or a set or whatever, it's like people take it in a way that you don't have any agency over. And so you just got to STFU and deal with it,
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Because I think that oftentimes like I have this expectation that like this will mean to you what it meant to me. This will mean
and that sucks because it's never
impossible because we have our experiences, you know, and like that's why something means as much to us as it does. So but there's also been things where like you were talking about songs, like expectations. I've had songs where I was like, this is going to hit, everybody's going to love it. And I'm like, this is a bummer song and it's not going to do anything. But like, I just don't have enough songs. And that's a song that somebody comes up afterwards and it's just like, hey, I lost a friend to suicide. So like you talking about that in this way, like really connected. So like, I think that expectations can kind of screw us because like maybe I put more into a song that I thought was really going to hit and less into one that I didn't. And instead, like, but like somebody resonated with it regardless because of their experiences. So I think expectations can be healthy, but I think that they can also be, misrepresentative of like what you can really hope for.
Like how much effort are you putting into a song based on like what you want the song to be versus what you're expecting, like the fanfare or like reaction to
what do I want them to feel or what do I want to say?
Which is the thing that you don't actually have any control over.
Nope. Nope.
I feel like it narrows our focus in a way that takes away from other opportunities. I feel like that's a theme I'm picking up on sometimes.
Yeah.
Not always, but sometimes like that's a theme of expectations that.
Well, I think if you have a certain like a goal and if things don't line up with that goal, then it's just like, that's just a straight up failure. I didn't hit the goal.
Yeah.
But like not having expectations is, well, I ended up here, but I didn't even expect to make it this far. So I guess I'll see where I go next.
Yeah. And a lot of it too, for me, like expectations are kind of built around fear or insecurity, what I mean? Of like, oh, well, if I don't meet this goalpost or whatever, it's because yada yada. I'm like inferior or
So you're attaching it's because
they're really tightly entwined a lot of times for me, because if I don't meet that expectation, it's because, and then I take that on as like an inherent. I take ownership over it when that's not always the case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean?
totally.
Well, it's attaching an event to like a reason it happened.
Yeah.
You know, that like maybe you don't even know that that's the reason it happened.
Totally.
My book didn't sell because I didn't write it well enough.
Right,
My
right.
song
Yeah.
didn't do well because I wasn't rapping well enough. Like
Totally.
I think it's once we start attaching a because to it, we're I don't know, creating meaning where maybe there's not any.
Yeah. Yeah. The world is a big place and there are so many factors to any given thing ever, you know?
Totally.
So,
Yeah. Another thing about expectations is I think you have a book that is expecting to come out soon.
hey,
So
ka-ching.
killing it today.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. You get the
A
host chair
ninja
today.
there. That
Yeah.
was
I like
seamless.
other people's problems and things.
That's really good.
No, but yeah, you have a new book coming out called Coffin Moon.
Coffin Moon.
You
it
did
comes
it.
out.
Oh my
Good job.
God. You're hired.
Yeah.
And it's really important that people pre-order
Beautifully done.
your
yeah.
book, right?
Yeah.
From where?
From
Indie stores.
indie stores would be best, but all the places that books are sold.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Get it if you can, where you can.
There you go.
When is that
Yeah.
expected?
Yeah.
September 9th. And we haven't officially announced anything as far as like events go, but there are
Sure.
some very awesome local events coming up that I can't announce yet.
Yep,
But like
keep an eye out.
keep that
But we can
week.
vaguely expect them.
Yeah, keep that week open for doing some fun stuff in Portland.
Okay.
So.
Can people follow you? Where do you prefer to be followed?
Yeah, Instagram or Blue Sky.
Okay.
So just Keith Rosson, you'll see my beautiful smiling mug
There you
on my
go.
little avatar and just follow that. So yeah.
Sweet. And we'll have a link to you, or at least we'll have your name spelled correctly
Yeah,
in
there
the
we go.
thing so they
Yeah,
know
yeah.
how to find you.
There we go.
I don't know if
Great.
there'll be a link, but we can
Yeah.
maybe.
Links. I'm not even sure how
Name.
those work.
And then you know how to work the internet, so you can figure that out for
got
yourself.
it.
There
You
you go.
got it. Speaking of the internet, who expected that to blow up? Oh my God. No.
Also, where is it?
Yeah. Where is it? Where's the internet?
Yeah.
It's in the series of tubes,
Just a lot of
Zoe.
tubes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just tubes, dog. Yeah, I don't know. I think I have some expectations for a show tonight where I'm really hoping it'll go well. But I think
Where is it?
it's at like it's called
Jasmine knows.
Salon Rouge.
Salon Rouge.
Oh,
Yes, it's kind of like a small house venue where it's
Music?
like in a garage. It's going to be music and comedy.
Nice.
You want to come hang out? I did like a newer set the other night, and I think it was because I changed my expectations of how it should or could even go.
Yeah.
Because I've done it for this like the same way so many times that when I was just like, what if I just didn't expect this to be perfect, but like, you know, hoped it might be different.
And the things that didn't go well went so great.
Yes.
Like the mistakes really like flipped and
Yeah.
were kind of like some of the best parts of it. The
Yes.
mic cord fell out and
on the last verse.
You rolled with it.
and
fucking
so
screamed
instead
it
of
to
like
the
being
room.
instead of being upset about it or being like hold on or trying to figure out plugging it back in, just like dropping it and just going and like doing
Yeah,
it without
but
looked very cool.
it felt cool.
I
you
did
know?
that one time at the first time I ever did Al's Den. Actually, the last time.
Ever heard of it?
Yeah, the mic cut out, and I was like, I could just yell. I'm loud, and maybe I was new though, and maybe I did something weird because it was like when I was a comedian. But look, I'm like, it was cool. I'm all maybe it was because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But yeah, no, I had the same experience where I was like, I'm just gonna yell.
Yeah.
You could have just been like, and made it way awkward for you
But
and everyone, right?
Absolutely. Well, I think we have these expectations that it's going to be perfect, you
Yeah.
know, like the mic's going to be in there, it's all going to go fine. And then the second that it's not that, it's very easy to just shut down. Like I think that I shut down when I have an expectation
Totally.
that like maybe I'm not aware of, where I'm just like, things are going to go fine, you know, that it's all going to, oh wait, everything's bad. Never mind. This is where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I think that is the last thing you should be doing, because there's nothing that's truly predictable. You know, you can
Yeah.
have your small group of people who are like mostly predictable, but like that doesn't mean that
Or the
like
people that are like predictable next to you in chaos.
yes, predictably, I can predict them being in chaos, and that's good enough for me sometimes. But I think, just having like a certain amount of predictability with a certain amount of surprise, because that's I imagine that's just what writing horror is. You know, it's like you want it to go to a familiar place, so that way you can like bring them there, but you also want to surprise them in a way that they're like, oh, my expectation wasn't that.
Yeah. Well, and as
Can we just acknowledge that artful callback to the first segment in the last 2 minutes of this?
Yeah.
That was well
There
done.
you go.
Continue on.
Yeah.
and I also think like surprising yourself as a writer is really important too. And so I know writers who outline everything meticulously before they ever start writing.
Mhm.
And I am not like that at all. And so like I occasionally, when things are going really well, I get to have that moment of like, oh, what if I do this?
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. So are you somebody who writes with like an expectation of an end in mind?
No, I never know the ending.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
never
All
know
right.
the ending. I'm just started a new book while I'm like kind of editing another one, and I'm like 10,000 words into it, and like I have no idea what's happening.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Just happening while it's happening.
I'm just like, when things are going really well, then the next one or two scenes kind of reveal themselves.
That's really cool.
And if they don't, then I have to backtrack and be like, where am I stuck?
Yeah.
I love
like
hearing about your writing process. It's super interesting.
Yeah.
Really philosophical too. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't know what the ending's going to be, but
Yeah.
I'll just worry about the next two scenes.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Well, Keith, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, I had a
Thank you.
blast.
Speaking of
so much.
endings.
Thank
I was
you.
just going to say, speaking
Yeah.
of endings.
Oh my God. Speaking of segues, I have been your host, your old pal Zane. He was Zoe Schwartz,
Bye.
Jasmine Nothing,
Goodbye.
and Keith Rosson.
Yeah.
Thanks
so
for
much.
being here, Keith.
Yeah,
This was
appreciate it.
awesome.
Later, players.